taking the seats out of an '07 Ford Ranger single cab, and you can see all this white stuff down here on the floorboard. I believe that's residue from cigarette ashes. Also on the back of the seat there's a cloth material, and that has absorbed the cigarette smell as well. So first thing to do is take off the bolts that hold down the seats. I'm going to start with the driver's side. I have the seat slid all the way forward. That exposes 2 bolts. Two more bolts in the front. In addition to cleaning the floorboard and the seats, I'm also going to clean the headliner. That's actually stained brown from the cigarette smoke. The front seat is loose, which includes this armrest and this little extra section of seat. But one problem you might have, this is where the seat belt for the center seat, if you want to have somebody ride up front in the middle, and you need a very large Torx fitting to get that bolt out, but I do not have one that large. But what I can do, take the buckle off of the strap and then pull that strap through. That's one way to get the strap loose from that seat without taking that bolt loose, because you're going to have to get that strap loose in order to get the front seat all the way out, the driver's seat. Underneath the driver's seat, this wiring harness that leads to the seat belt, right up here at the top, there's a release clip, so you press in on that. Now the driver's seat is loose, we can get that out. On the floorboard underneath, that is what my father-in-law could not quit. Same thing for the passenger seat. I have it slid all the way up, and there are 2 bolts on the back and 2 in the front. Another wiring harness underneath the passenger seat. To get the center console out, there are 4 Phillips head screws, 2 in the front and 2 down in here. Once you get those 4 screws loose, my original plan was just to take the seats out in that center console and then scrub this down and rinse it out with a garden hose, but there are too many spots where water can get underneath this floor liner. So I'm going to take this floor liner all the way out. And to get the liner out, there's a piece of trim, this black plastic trim at each doorway. That has to come out, and there are 4 Phillips head screws holding each one of those pieces down. What I'm going to do is spray WD-40 on the heads of the 3 remaining screws on this piece and the 4 on the other side. And then I'm going to let that sit overnight, come back in the morning and try to get the rest of them out. It's the next morning, and that does not want to come out. That is rusted in. Try this one. No on that one as well. So plan B is to drill them out. Broke off the head, but that's all right. And these drill bits that I'm using are reverse drill bits. So the hope is that they'll drill into the screw and back it out, which is what happened with this one. Broke off the head, but I did get the piece of trim out. 4 screws on the passenger side trim. They all came out easy. They were not rusted in like the driver's side. Now underneath this cover, which is behind the passenger seat, we've got to get this out. So now the last 2 fasteners holding down this floor liner are the 2 fasteners that I avoided earlier because they are Torx, and I don't have a Torx driver that's big enough to fit in there. However, I do have a hex driver, and this is 7mm, and this appears to fit down in there pretty tightly. It gets a pretty good bite. I think that's everything that's holding this floor liner in, so we should be able to get it out now. Got a water leak somewhere. It's wet underneath the driver's floorboard. So I'm fixing one problem, and I found another. But that is how you get the floor liner out of an '07 Ford Ranger. Should apply to any single cab Ford Ranger or Mazda B series truck. Let's get it cleaned up and also the seats cleaned up. This is Purple Power Degreaser full strength, and in the bucket I have hot water Pine Sol and dishwashing liquid. There's a felt liner underneath, so when I'm through, it's going to have to hang out in the sun for several days to dry. Next, we'll clean the seats. I'm going to be using a Bissell Spot Clean Pro to clean the seats and the headliner. I'll finish up cleaning this by hand, and now let's take the Bissell and clean the headliner. Right there, you can see the edge of the stain. This is right above the driver's seat. So that's where the headliner is stained from the cigarette smoke. I got most of it cleaned, not perfectly, but much better than what it was. And I'm not going to do any more because something that someone warned me about is happening in a few spots, which is that the headliner is held on by an adhesive, and if you use too much water, that can dissolve the adhesive, and that's happening right here, just a little bit, and right here directly in front of the steering wheel. So right there on the edge, I can get some adhesive behind that and glue that back up. So that is all I'm going to do with the headliner. And now let's check the discharge water. That is the nastiness that I got out of the seats and the headliner, and I would imagine most of that is because of nicotine. So while the seats and floor liner are drying, and that's going to take a couple of days, I've been looking for the source of the water. How is it getting into the driver's side floorboard? And I found the problem. That's going to be a separate video. Now I'm waiting for everything to dry, and then I'll get it put back in. I'm going to wind up taking all this up because there is a lot of rust underneath. Got most of that sound barrier up, still a few spots left to scrape up, but that's what I'm going to be doing with a scraper and a wire brush. Then I'll come back with a 50-50 mix of transmission fluid and penetrol. I'm going to use straight penetrol to recondition the vinyl floor liner. Here's a last little spot, and you can see how well the penetrol brings back the luster of this vinyl. It works on faded black plastic trim also on cars. I will let this dry overnight. One last place that needed penetrol on the underside of the driver's seat, all this surface rust. The rust needs air for the oxidation to occur, and penetrol seals it up and blocks off the air. See that brown? That's the nicotine from the cigarettes. So I'm going to wipe down all the interior and come back in the morning. Everything should be dry and we can put it all back together. The next morning, getting it all put back in, reinstallation is just a reversal of removal. That is it. I am done. The smell of cigarette smoke inside the cab is significantly better now that I took the seats and floor liner out and cleaned them and cleaned the headliner and wiped down all the interior. The water leak video, I'll put a link to that up in the top left. Next video will be taking the blower motor out because even on high speed I don't get much air at all through the vents. That'll be next. Water leak is here. This one's done. Thanks for watching.